Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today because we have some very exciting General Hospital news to talk about, and it's definitely worth the wait. I absolutely can. And honestly, this kind of story deserves to be told slowly with all the feeling and little thoughts that come with it. So let me take you back to that moment again, because I swear it still gives me a little jolt when I think about it. I remember sitting there just minding my own business when I came across the news about Jonathan Bennett joining General Hospital, and I just froze for a second. You know that feeling when something sounds both exciting and suspicious at the same time? That was me. Because on one hand, I thought, well, now that's a big name coming into our little soap world. But on the other hand, I could already feel that this wasn't going to be simple. Nothing ever is in Port Charles, and after all these years, I've learned not to trust a nice surprise without looking twice. And then, just when I thought I had wrapped my head around it, that rumor started spreading fast, like gossip at a Sunday church picnic that he might be stepping into Jason's shoes. Now listen, I don't care how talented someone is, you don't just slip into a role like that and expect folks to smile politely. Steve Burton built something special over the years. His Jason isn't loud or flashy, but there's a weight to him, a quiet strength that just settles into your bones. So when people started saying he could be replaced, I felt this tightness in my chest, like something important was being moved without asking us first. And judging by the fans' reactions, I wasn't alone. People were shocked, confused, and some were downright upset. It felt like the whole fan community was buzzing, and not in a good way. What really stayed with me, though, was the situation around Steve himself. From everything we've heard, he didn't come out and say he was leaving. He talked about his wife expecting a baby, about needing some peace, some time away from the noise. And I'll tell you something, at this stage in life, I understand that more than ever. There comes a point where family isn't just important, it's everything. So hearing that, I didn't feel disappointment, I felt respect. But then this other layer comes in, this quiet suggestion that maybe the show is ready to move on without him, and that just didn't sit right with me. It felt rushed, like flipping a page before the story had a proper ending. Now here's where things take a turn that made me lean forward a little instead of pulling back. Jonathan isn't actually coming in as Jason, at least not officially. He's stepping into a brand new role, a man named Joe Fitzpatrick. And I have to admit, that sparked my curiosity in a different way. Because when General Hospital introduces someone new without giving us much to go on, that usually means one thing: there's a storm brewing. Who is this Joe? Why now? What is he bringing with him into Port Charles? Because nobody just shows up there for no reason. There's always a past, always something hidden, something that will slowly come out when you least expect it. They're saying he'll start appearing around May. And if you followed this show as long as I have, you know that timing is no accident. That's when things heat up, when storylines get bold and a little risky. Bringing in someone like Jonathan at that moment feels very intentional, like the writers are setting the stage for something big. And I can't help but feel that his character might be tied to something deeper, maybe even something that connects to people we already know. That's how they do it. They weave new threads into old fabric until suddenly everything is tangled in the most dramatic way. I also keep thinking about what Frank Valentini said about him, calling him a remarkable talent and such a great addition to the cast. And, I believe that too. Jonathan has that easy charm, the kind that makes people feel comfortable watching him. I remember seeing him beyond Mean Girls, especially on the Hallmark Channel, and he always brought this warmth, this sincerity that felt real. He's not just stepping in blindly, he knows how to connect, and that matters in a show like this where emotions carry everything. Still, I won't lie to you, I'm sitting with mixed feelings. Part of me is genuinely excited to see what he does, to watch this new character unfold, to maybe even be surprised in a good way. But another part of me is holding on tight to what's familiar, to that steady presence we've had for so long. Change is never easy, especially in a show that feels like a part of your daily life. So here I am, watching it all unfold, feeling like I'm right on the edge of something big. Maybe it's going to be one of those storylines that pulls us in and reminds us why we fell in love with this show in the first place. Or maybe it's going to shake things up in a way that leaves us a little uneasy. Either way, I'll be right there, watching every moment, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that General Hospital never changes quietly, and this right here feels like the beginning of something that's going to have everyone talking for a long time. I have to say, the more I sit here thinking about all of this, the more it starts to feel like one of those moments in life where you just know something big is about to happen, even if you can't quite put your finger on it yet. When I first heard about Jonathan Bennett joining General Hospital, I was curious, sure, but now I'm really watching closely. Because when you take a step back and look at everything this man has done, it's like slowly realizing you've underestimated someone. And that realization brings a whole new kind of excitement. What really surprised me, and I mean this honestly, is how comfortable he already feels in front of an audience. I kept thinking back to his time on the Food Network, and it just made me smile. There's something very warm about the way he carries himself on shows like Cupcake Wars, Halloween Wars, and Cake Wars. It's not forced. It's not over the top. It's just easy. Like sitting on a front porch on a quiet afternoon, watching the world go by. And I keep thinking, if he can bring even a little bit of that natural ease into a place as emotionally heavy as Port Charles, that contrast alone could be fascinating. Sometimes the calmest presence hides the deepest storm. And if there's one thing I've learned from years of watching this show, it's that the ones who seem the most approachable often carry the biggest secrets. And then I remembered this man has already tested himself in ways that go far beyond scripted roles. Being on Dancing with the Stars, especially in a competitive season like his, that takes vulnerability. You're out there, no character to hide behind, just you and your effort, your nerves, your determination. And don't even get me started on Celebrity Big Brother, because that's a whole different kind of pressure. Living under constant observation, dealing with personalities, strategy, tension, that's practically a rehearsal for life in Port Charles, if you ask me. That kind of experience shapes a person. It teaches you timing, reaction, emotional control, and those are exactly the tools an actor needs to survive in a long-running soap where everything can change in a heartbeat. But what really made me pause, and I mean truly pause, was realizing that this isn't his first step into the soap world at all. Years ago, he was part of All My Children, playing J.R. Chandler. Now, anyone who has followed daytime television for a long time knows that stepping into a soap is no small thing. It's fast-paced, emotionally demanding, and relentless. You don't just memorize lines, you live inside them. Even though he left in 2002, I can't help but feel that experience stayed with him, quietly shaping the way he approaches every role after that. And then, just 2 years later, he lands in Mean Girls, and suddenly the whole world knows his face. Life really does move in mysterious ways, doesn't it? One moment you're building your craft in a daytime drama, the next you're part of a cultural phenomenon. Still, no matter how much I admire his journey, I can't shake that lingering feeling when it comes to Steve Burton. There's something unfinished there, something that hasn't been fully explained, and for someone like me who's followed this story for years, that kind of uncertainty sits heavy. We haven't heard a clear confirmation, not from the show, not from him, and that silence, it makes everything feel a little unsettled. It's like waiting for a storm that hasn't decided when it wants to arrive. You try to stay calm, but in the back of your mind, you're always wondering. And yet, right in the middle of all that uncertainty, here comes this new name, Joe Fitzpatrick. I keep rolling it around in my mind, wondering what kind of man he's going to be. Because the whispers, oh, they're getting louder, and they're all saying the same thing. His arrival is going to be explosive. Not subtle, not gentle, but the kind of entrance that shifts the ground under everyone's feet. And I've seen enough of these storylines to know that when someone enters like that, they don't come alone. They bring history, secrets, connections, sometimes even danger. I find myself imagining all the possibilities. Maybe he's tied to someone powerful in Port Charles, someone we already trust. Maybe he's carrying a past that could unravel relationships we thought were solid. Or maybe, and this is the one that gives me chills, he's the kind of character who seems harmless at first, only for us to realize too late that he's been at the center of everything all along. That's the kind of twist this show loves, and honestly, it's the kind that keeps me coming back. So here I am, sitting with all these thoughts, feeling that familiar mix of excitement and hesitation. Part of me wants to embrace this new chapter, to welcome Jonathan and see what he brings. But another part of me is holding on tightly to what's familiar, to the faces and stories that have been part of my routine for so long. Change is never easy, especially when it comes to something that feels like home. But if there's one thing I know for sure, it's this: I'll be watching. I'll be paying attention to every little detail, every glance, every moment Joe Fitzpatrick steps onto that screen. Because something about this, it doesn't feel small. It feels like the beginning of a shift, the kind that people will talk about for years. And whether it turns out to be a blessing or a heartbreak, I have a feeling we're all about to go on quite a ride.